you talk about a policy of triangulation, particular architect Dick Morris in this. Explain what that is for our audience. It's a very interesting concept.
He was hired on by Clinton, in particular at the instigation of the First Lady, as the sort of guy they needed in a tight corner. He came up with a cheap theory with a fancy-sounding name. The cheap theory is understandable by anyone who can grasp the principle of three-card Monte. But it's called triangulation. It consists of this. You comb through the Republican Party's program, and you steal all the best bits of it that you can.
The supportable ends.
Yes. And you hope that you'll bring their donors along with the programs. You'll get the money that comes with, which you can easily do. And then you road test it through opinion polls to see at which point to adopt which policy and so on. It's quite carefully calibrated. Now, that's an old story. Stealing the opponent's clothes is one thing, and moving to the center, as it's sometimes called, middle ground, is another. But this is to really, so to speak, to make it not a tactic, but the whole strategy. It's the thing itself. The Ding an sich, as Hegel would have said. The third bit, which is, in a way, should be the hardest, but under Clinton has, to my annoyance, been the easiest, is keeping the liberals with you while you do that.
Your actual constituency, your voting constituency.
Which in the Democratic Party's traditional sense is organized labor.
Right.
Certainly the urban, most actually of black America. Quite a lot of the educated female population represented by organizations like NOW, National Organization of Women. Etude quantity, that kind of thing.
Right, right.
That's the hard bit, because you have to get them to swallow an awful lot. But that's the bit that, in a sense, worked the best for him.
A political pro would say, well, okay, it's a good strategy.
And also, I might add another and relatively new force in the United States, the gay community. For example, Mr. Clinton raised an enormous amount of money from them in '92, saying he would lift the ban on homosexuals in the armed forces.
Right.
He broke that promise within 2 days of being elected, which
don't ask, don't tell.
Which I thought was bad for two reasons. One is he plainly suckered them, and the other was that he was giving in to the Joint Chiefs who were telling him what the policy should be. And
right.
It's very important in the United States that civilian control be maintained. It should be him telling them. But well, your point about politically clever,
right.
You can then turn to the gay people who've done all this for you and say, well, sorry, faggots, but where are you going to go? To the Republican Party? No.
Sure.
But there are diminishing returns to this, you see, I think. I mean, in the end, it means that politics is hollowed out at its core. It's all over. It just really is a racket.
Because there is no philosophical or moral compass that's driving.
So, yeah, call me old-fashioned if you will, but I mind about that.
Now, welfare reform also for you is a great example of triangulation, and in many respects a turning point for the Democrats.
It was probably the most ruthless of the lot, because if the Democratic Party stood for anything, it was for at least what had survived of the Roosevelt New Deal, and one of the emblematic features of that was that in the United States, a child is not held responsible for the faults of its parents.
Of course.
That if you're born into appalling poverty, you're not going to suffer to the extreme. There is a federal guaranteed minimum that can be paid. Is paid to you or for you, or usually to your mother, to make sure that no matter how bad things get, there is a floor, net, that's variously described. Clinton's removed that with one stroke. Now, he used to say that he wouldn't cut people off welfare and just drop them into the bottomless statistical pool until there'd been retraining for people provided, until there was health care, various other ways to soften the blow. Everyone wants more people on welfare to be at work, of course. But faced with what he thought might be a tight election, he simply adopted the harshest bits of the Republican program, proposed a bill that was tougher than any they'd ever proposed, cut all the redeeming features out of it, and rammed it through to show that he could be a hard man.
All in the aid of keeping corporate America on side financially.
Absolutely, yes. And also, of course, of depriving the Republicans of an issue.